UFC 302 is taking place this Saturday in Newark, New Jersey. And we here at Question Mark Picks are going to be going through every single fight on the card. I'm going to be giving my detailed breakdown for each of the fights. And let's just jump right into it. Starting with the curtain jerker of Andre Lima versus Mitch Raposo. So that Andre Lima debut, I mean, he wins the debut via a bite DQ. I've been watching UFC since I was 10, and I've never seen this happen before, which I think kind of overshadows the fact that he was losing that fight, at least from my perspective. And you never know, sometimes people are slow starters. We didn't really get to see the fight progress, but really didn't see enough to know for sure, is Andre Lima going to be a player at flyweight? And it's worth mentioning, and I'm doing these after the weigh-ins because I'd like to have the weigh-in intel, going into my picks. But he missed weight by 4 pounds, which is considerable. And Mitch Raposo still took the fight. Pretty dumb for him to take the fight, I would say. But balls on the guy. Mitch Raposo. I don't know much of Mitch Raposo other than, he has a loss on the season of The Ultimate Fighter with a bunch of bantamweights who've gone on to do nothing. So I'm going to go with Andre Lima by knockout in the second. All right, so then moving on, we have Ailin Perez versus Jocelyn Edwards. So, La Pantera, Jocelyn Edwards, coming off of a loss versus Nora. I can't say this last name without saying Cornhole. So I'm just going to say that she lost to Nora Cornhole by unanimous decision. And, when you're looking at her run, it's like she lost to Jessica Rose Clark. Beat Ramona Pasquale, couple of split decisions. You don't like to see it. And, despite the fact that, Ailin Perez is, she's coming off 2 wins, couple of canceled bouts, lost to Stephanie Egger. She's definitely the more attractive fighter here, but can't go off of that. Coming out of the goat shed, I have to make a pick. I wish I didn't have to on this one. I'm going to go with the favorite, Ailin Perez, to win a unanimous decision. Not even close. Okay, moving on here, we got Mickey Gall making his return. I thought that Mickey Gall was cut. He hasn't fought again. Obviously, he's still, signed. I just thought, someone like Mickey Gall falls off your radar. So you're starting to think, like, is this guy in the regional scene? Did he, get some wins and make his way back? And you look and you're like, nope, guy hasn't fought since, he got knocked out by Mike Malott. And this was in April of 2022. So we're talking a more than 2-year layoff for, a guy who seems, despite the fact that he got knocked out by Malott, durable. I know that we're not talking about, mythical fighter Mike Perry in BKFC. This was back in 2020. But, he took Perry to a decision. Randy Brown, he took Randy Brown to he's losing these decisions, but I'm saying just because he gets knocked out by Mike Malott, I'm not sure that Basil Hafez is going to, I'm not sure that he's going to have finishing potential here, but you can't look at a guy taking JDM to a split decision loss and say, that guy's going to lose to Mickey Gall. It's just not going to happen. So I will take Basil Hafez by unanimous decision. Okay, so moving along here, we got, this is a fun one. This is my biggest, my most confident underdog pick on the entire card. We've got Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. So, you know, this segment of the channel, I'm not going to talk about the lines unless I'm really referring to the fact that like someone's an underdog, but you know, I'm going to be separately posting videos where I'm giving my best bets for every card, but you know, we're just focused here on the pick. I'm not even going to track if I get the method right. We're really just trying to track, you know, if I'm getting the picks right here. And so, you know, I'm just going to say underdog on the line, but again, like I'm not talking about this from like a, you know, betting perspective, but I don't see in what world we have Jake Matthews as a favorite here. You know, we're looking at Phil Rowe, who is a long, lanky guy who's dangerous on the feet. And, you know, one might say, hey, you know, this guy's been doing grappling matches, you know, getting just flying triangled by, you know, Craig Jones and, you know, Nick Galani and Gordon Ryan and, you know, getting subbed by these guys. Well, he actually lost a decision. But it's like, this guy clearly understands where his weaknesses lie, and he's doing grappling competitions. You like to see that. And, you know, I know if you look at his Tapology, you're seeing a bunch of L's, but it's like a lot of these are grappling matches. Again, if we're looking at actual fights, right, he knocks out Orion Cosey. He knocks out Jason Witt. Knocks out the corpse of Nico Price, who's fighting tonight, or who's fighting on Saturday as well, and he's been looking good in these fights, and he's a sniper on the feet. And you know what I also want to look at here is with Jake Matthews, like, are we really that impressed at this point that, you know, he knocked out Andre Fialho? You know, it's like, I think my cat might be able to knock out Andre Fialho. So I'm not really reading into that too much. And, you know, he loses to Matthew Semmelsberger. That's a very salty loss. Beats Darius Flowers, you know, guy in the regional scene who takes a short notice fight. And then he loses to Michael Morales. So give me Phil Rowe by knockout in the first round. Just gonna snipe him coming in, and I don't see where Jake Matthews is gonna win. Honestly, he could walk into a sub. Like, Phil Rowe's clearly been working on his grappling, so you know, each pick, I'm just making picks here, right? So, but if I could give more weight to one, you know, and this will be, and spoiler alert, this will be one of my best bets, is not by method, because honestly, if we start to get into, you know, talking about the betting, it's like, you look at a guy like Phil Rowe, does he knock most people out? Yeah. And then you take him by knockout, and then he guillotines Jake Matthews. So, you know, when you're getting the plus money, I would just be confident enough just to take a flyer at the dog. And so, give me Phil Rowe by knockout, but Phil Rowe's my pick. Anyway, moving on here. We have Grant Dawson versus Joe Selecki. You know, it's weird because sometimes fighters, like, they come off of a tricky loss and then they just get fed to the wolves, you know? Like, I'm trying to think of, like, you know, someone else at lightweight who, you know, would really give a guy like Grant Dawson problems. You know, let me just real quick, let me just take a look at the rankings, because, you know, I want to look at somebody who's like at a, you know, at a similar level here, you know, just saying as like an opponent, right? Like, and I understand, like, you know, you got to line up with the right schedule. Trust me, I get that, right? But, like, they're not giving him Manuel Torres. You know, they're not giving him an oral buy. You know, they're not giving him Bonfim. they're not giving him like a, Joel Alvarez, right? Like, these are all guys who are right outside of the top 15. And it's like, at this point, I just wonder, like, what are we doing with this fight? Like, because what the last fight told us, right, is, and you could just say it was a fluke. Maybe we'll look back and it was a total fluke. But he's fighting a guy like Bobby Green, who has experience and has some hands. And he one shot, a jab, takes him out. And where's the recovery? Like, he's not able to, like, turn this into a grappling exchange where he's maybe able to, get into his guard and, pull himself back together. I mean, we've seen plenty of situations like Arman versus Charles recently where, fight starts off, Arman slips, and he's in a super deep guillotine. And, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh, it's a wrap. And he makes an outstanding recovery. No recovery by Grant Dawson, but it's like, we know that Grant Dawson, and this is why he's a minus 500, minus 520 favorite. We know that Grant Dawson can grapple, okay? We watched what Grant Dawson has done, right? Like, you give Grant Dawson a guy like Mark Madsen, right? Olympic wrestler. You give him a guy like Damir Ismagulov, right? And we're like, okay, we understand what he is capable. We understand what Grant Dawson's capable of. But, like, what about the guys that are going to give him problems? But, the UFC just decides, like, no, let's just give this guy a layup, Let's give him Joe Selecki coming off of a slam knockout. I don't know. It makes no sense. Grant Dawson by decision. Moving on. So we got Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. And you guys might notice a theme here. Like, I don't want to just talk, right? Like, I don't just like, listening to myself talk here. The predictions are going to be short when I don't think there's a lot to talk about, because in some cases there just isn't, right? And this is funny because the parallels of this and the last fight that I just talked about, Grant Dawson. Like, okay, so Jailton goes up against Curtis Blades and is just diving in for his life. We realized this after watching the Derek Lewis fight, that, he's not a guy who's going to take risks. He wants to, lay on people and get wins. And you might think that the company might, UFC might get upset with that. And they're like, oh, here's someone who's going to be more of a test for you. Like a Pavlovich would have been interesting. But no, let's give him Alexander Romanov. A great grappler who, decimated a whole bunch of very mediocre heavyweights on his rise up. But, like, dude, Romanov had a hard time with Tybura. Like, do we really think that this fight is going to be competitive? I think that minus 325 is interesting. I might have made him minus 500. I think that Jailton is a steroid monster, and he is going to impose his will on Romanov, and he is going to win easily. I want to say decision, because now I think that he's just, he's realized, like, I don't have to go for the finish. The company will just, keep giving me people who I can beat until maybe I get to a point where, the same thing happens. It's like his stock dropped, but, like, the only way his stock's really going to go up for the fans is if he, proves the test. Him versus Gane maybe would be interesting, but he's going to smoke Romanov. So moving forward, we have Roman Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida, which is a super, super interesting fight. I go back and forth on this one, because you're looking at what's happened recently with these Glory guys who come over, and they're looking like really good, especially the Brazilian guys who are in their mid-30s seem to come over to the UFC and just make mincemeat of whoever they're fighting. But I think that Romanov just met the type of opponent that he's really going to struggle with, which is, you know, a guy like Fluffy Hernandez who's going to push you against the cage and is so good at taking the back. He's so good at taking the back. And, you know, my stock for Roman Kopylov has not fell maybe as much as it has for some other people. And I could regret this, but I'm going to take him by knockout over Cesar Almeida. I think that his body work is brutal. You know, I know that Josh Fremd does not have the stand-up pedigree of Cesar Almeida, but like I think that Josh Fremd is pretty good, and Roman made him look horrible on the feet, and he brutalized his midsection. Roman is a smart fighter, and I just think that like his kryptonite is going to be, again, someone like a Fluffy Hernandez. I don't think we've seen a little grappling from Cesar. I think that Cesar's going to come in and he's going to be very confident with his stand-up. And I think that, you know, we're just going to see that, like, you know, does he look like the Russian Chase Hooper who's, you know, does he look young? Yes, but he's 33, you know, and I think that he's going to get right back on his winning ways. And I think he's going to land a brutal liver kick. I think Cesar's going to maybe be overconfident, especially coming off that last fight where, you know, Butka is just, I don't know. We don't have to get into that, but Roman Kopylov by knockout. Okay, moving ahead, we have Randy Brown versus Eliju Zaleski dos Santos. Randy Brown's going to win this one. You know, this is a classic case, like Barboza recently, of like, you know, an older guy who's done well against people who he can do well against, like, you know, Rinat Fakhretdinov, but in Abubakar. And I know he beat BSD, but, you know, they make weight classes for a reason. The 155 to, you know, 170, you know, jump is, you know, Dos Santos is a big welterweight. And, you know, people get better. So, like, BSD learned from that fight. But, you know, you're looking at a guy who's, you know, dropped losses to, you know, Xingliang and, you know, Muslim Salikov, and he's had some very favorable matchups since then, I would say. And, yeah, Rude Boy is one of these underrated guys, you know. I really think he's one of these underrated guys. He's long. You know, just because he got folded against JDM does not mean that he's not, you know, a sniper on the feet. And I just like, where is Dos Santos going to win? I think that his age is going to show, and give me Randy Brown by decision, because Dos Santos is tough. Okay, so moving forward, we got the zombie of Nico Price versus Alex Morono. Nico Price has got like 7 kids or something like that. I think he's just fighting for money. I know this sounds harsh. Sorry, Nico Price. You know, it was funny because I went to the UFC Orlando and his like whole cheering section was there. Family all wearing, you know, his t-shirts, and I was sitting like right behind them, and I had bet on Phil Rowe to knock him out, and he did. And I was pumped, and they were all like mortified. But anyway, Alex Morono by decision. I'm sorry, I know that wasn't like a long, but it's a, what are we doing here? Like, I would take Morono by knockout if he was capable of knocking. Maybe he will, but I just don't think that, you know, I think Morono is one of these guys who it's like sub or decision, and I don't think Nico's ever been subbed. Okay, he's been subbed one time, and that was by Vicente Luque, when Luque was, you know, that was 2017 Luque. So we're talking about a beast of a man. Morono by decision. I'm sticking with my gut feeling here. Okay, moving along. We got Kevin Holland versus Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. Mikhail's one of these guys that you're always tempted to take, but like, I think that sometimes you're looking at a matchup where it's just way too big of a step up in competition, and it's like Holland has good wins at middleweight. It's not like he was doing terrible at middleweight. He was losing to the cream of the crop at middleweight before he went down to welter. Like, he's only losing to really high-level fighters. That being said, Mikal, he's mostly losing by sub. So give me Kevin Holland by decision or submission. And I'll say by decision because I don't think it's likely. I think that Kevin Holland's he wants a dub here. He wants he wants the win check. And like, how is Mikal gonna win? Is he gonna outstrike Kevin Holland? Like, I don't see it happening. Kevin Holland's not getting outstruck unless it's versus an MVP or a Wonder Boy Thompson. He's not going to get outstruck by a Mikal. It's just not going to happen. So, Kevin Holland. Moving on to the co-main event, we have Sean Strickland, the People's Champion, versus Paolo Secret Juice Costa. Costa's like a lovable guy. Like, he's hilarious. He's a great personality. I love having him in a division where there's like not a lot of funny personality. I mean, I know I say that, and there's him and Sean. Who else is there other than him and Sean? Like, is Dreykus that interesting? No. Is Izzy? No. And you look at all these other guys, like, there's great fighters, but like, this is the clash of the interesting personalities. But, despite the fact that Sean at the press conference is saying he hopes that there's going to be a confirmed kill, it's like, yeah, you're not going to be the one to be getting a confirmed kill, and neither is Costa. Costa couldn't knock out Luke Rockhold. I thought it was funny that Sean made that joke where drag back the corpse of Luke Rockhold so that he can get a win. Paulo's going to swing big. He's going to look cool. Probably go for the, capoeira, spinning heel kick type situation, and he's going to lose a decision. I know I'm not making a lot of controversial picks on this card. I don't think that there are a lot of controversial picks that really make sense on this card. So, yeah, give me Sean Strickland to, do this nice little Philly shell and keep his hands out, be really safe, start slow. Maybe Costa looks good in the first round because Sean's doing his kind of, feel out type strategy that he has. But in the end, his volume will win. There's no way that Costa's gonna... I mean, I can't say there's no way because, like, he did hurt Whitaker, but he hurt Whitaker and then he couldn't finish him. So, and he did have time. It's not like there was literal seconds, I just think that he's one of these guys who... And he made a comment, like, I could work my wrestling. I will be shocked if he even shoots a single takedown. And I know that Sean got taken down by DDP, but I don't see Costa becoming, Paulo Nurmagomedov. Yeah, it took a fucking couple tries to get out. And put on his wrestling shoes and show what the Dagestani secret juice is all about. He's not going to do that. Sean Strickland by decision, maybe late KO, but probably by decision. Moving on, Dustin Poirier by guillotine. Just kidding. Yeah, what are we doing here? What are we doing? I don't like this. It's like what Islam said at the press conference. He was like, this is sad. I feel bad for the guy. I feel bad for the guy. I know that the UFC is a marketing, they're trying to build interest. So the interest around this is like the Rocky story. Is he going to get it done? If he was going to get it done, it was going to be against Oliveira, and he got subbed. I know that there's rumors floating around that Islam has, a staph infection. I know there's rumors floating around that, the weight cut was hard. He was like one of the first guys on the scale, so I don't think that there's any... Dude, and like these Dagestani guys, they will literally pull out of fights if something's wrong. Like, they're not McGregor. They're not gonna go into the fight with a fracture in their shin and say, let's just I don't know, risk my legacy. Like, he's not going to do that. Legacy matters so much. And smartly so. I'm not saying that he's, you know, like, I'm not dinging him for that, but anyway, yeah, I like Dustin a lot. And he's going to lose, and it's going to be sad, and he's going to cry at the press conference again. Islam by suffocating third round submission. I'd like to see Dustin win, but it's not going to happen, guys. I know that there's not a lot of like juicy upsets that I have on here, but you know, again, I thought about this card pretty hard. I feel like it's one of those cards where in a lot of spots, you know, and I'll have a separate video that comes out talking about it from a betting perspective, but in a lot of spots, you know, you can see what the company wants, and what they want is probably going to happen. So anyway, this is the first fight breakdown that I've done. I'm going to be doing them weekly. I'm going to be posting a separate video just giving my best bets. This isn't like recommending that, you know, these picks get made in every single fight, because like I said, in the Aylin Perez one, it's like I would never put my money on that. But anyways, thank you for tuning in. Going to be dropping, like I said, weekly videos going through these picks. And, you know, if you guys, you know, are feeling like, you know, you see some juicy underdogs here, let me know in the comments. But anyways, like and subscribe, and hope you all have a good weekend. Hope you all have fun watching the fights. Peace.